The bedroom is the place where your avoidant partner gets exposed. Have you ever wondered why someone who says they love you suddenly becomes emotionally distant when true intimacy begins? The answer may not appear during arguments, text messages, or daily conversations because it often becomes visible inside the bedroom. That is where emotional walls become much harder to hide behind charming words, clever excuses, or carefully maintained independence. Many avoidant partners seem loving throughout the day, yet their deepest fears quietly emerge when emotional vulnerability becomes unavoidable. This does not mean every avoidant behaves the same, because attachment patterns exist on a broad psychological spectrum with differences. However, the bedroom often reveals relationship dynamics that stay hidden during everyday routines, exposing emotional patterns that are hard to ignore. If you have ever left intimate moments feeling lonely despite being physically close, this video may explain exactly why. Stay until the end, because the final sign often surprises people and changes how they understand avoidant attachment. The bedroom is rarely just a place for physical intimacy, because it also reflects emotional security or emotional distance. For securely attached couples, physical closeness naturally strengthens emotional connection, trust, reassurance, and mutual comfort together. For many avoidant partners, emotional exposure quietly activates fears they have spent years trying to suppress beneath independence. Instead of experiencing closeness as comforting, their nervous system sometimes interprets intimacy as pressure or a loss of control. That internal conflict usually stays hidden because avoidants often appear calm while emotional defenses become increasingly active beneath the surface. This explains why someone can genuinely care about you while struggling to remain emotionally present during intimate moments. The contradiction confuses anxious partners because love normally creates closeness instead of emotional withdrawal and distance. Understanding this difference helps you stop blaming yourself for reactions that often began long before your relationship. One of the earliest signs appears when emotional intimacy feels more uncomfortable than physical intimacy for your avoidant partner. They may willingly engage in physical affection while avoiding conversations involving deeper feelings, fears, or emotional reassurance afterward. You notice affectionate moments ending quickly because lingering emotional closeness feels more threatening than physical contact itself. Instead of staying connected afterward, they suddenly become distracted by work, television, phones, sleep, or household responsibilities. This behavior often leaves their partner feeling abandoned despite sharing an experience that should strengthen emotional connection. The avoidant usually does not realize why this pattern hurts, because distancing feels emotionally necessary rather than intentionally unkind. Their nervous system seeks relief from overwhelming vulnerability by creating emotional space after closeness has already occurred. Without recognizing this pattern, couples often repeat the same painful cycle for months or even years. Another revealing sign appears when your avoidant partner struggles to express genuine emotional needs during intimate moments together. Instead of admitting fear, insecurity, sadness, or longing, they remain silent while expecting their partner to somehow understand everything. Emotional dependence feels dangerous because childhood experiences may have taught them vulnerability leads to disappointment or rejection. As adults, they unconsciously protect themselves by minimizing needs instead of communicating what would make them feel safer. Their silence often gets mistaken for emotional strength, even though it reflects hidden emotional self-protection beneath confidence. Meanwhile, their partner becomes increasingly confused because guessing unspoken needs eventually creates frustration instead of understanding. Healthy intimacy requires emotional transparency, yet avoidance encourages emotional concealment whenever vulnerability feels emotionally overwhelming. That invisible conflict becomes especially noticeable where emotional closeness reaches its highest intensity. You may also notice your avoidant partner becoming unexpectedly critical during periods requiring greater emotional intimacy together. Small imperfections suddenly receive excessive attention, while meaningful emotional discussions quietly disappear beneath criticism and defensiveness. Psychologists sometimes describe this as deactivating strategies because the avoidant mind unconsciously searches for emotional distance again. Finding flaws temporarily reduces vulnerability because emotional detachment feels safer than fully trusting another person's love and acceptance. The criticism rarely reflects your actual worth because it often protects unresolved fears beneath emotional independence. Unfortunately, partners often internalize those comments, believing they somehow became less attractive or less lovable over time. The real issue usually involves emotional safety rather than physical attraction or genuine loss of romantic feelings. Recognizing this distinction prevents unnecessary self-blame while encouraging healthier conversations about emotional needs. Another powerful clue appears through inconsistency, because avoidant partners often alternate between warmth and emotional withdrawal without explanation. One evening, they seem deeply affectionate, yet the next day they appear emotionally unavailable, despite nothing changing between you. This inconsistency creates confusion, because predictable reassurance becomes replaced by uncertainty and constant relationship second-guessing. The anxious partner naturally works harder seeking closeness, while the avoidant unconsciously pulls farther away protecting independence again. This painful dance strengthens both attachment styles, because each coping strategy reinforces the other's deepest emotional fears. Breaking this cycle requires awareness rather than blame, because neither partner usually intends creating emotional suffering. Understanding attachment dynamics transforms confusing behaviors into understandable psychological patterns that couples can gradually address together. Awareness alone cannot solve everything, yet it creates the foundation for meaningful, emotional change. Perhaps the greatest exposure inside the bedroom happens after intimacy rather than during the experience for many avoidant partners. Secure partners usually enjoy remaining emotionally connected because closeness feels calming instead of emotionally overwhelming afterward. Avoidant individuals sometimes experience a delayed emotional alarm because vulnerability continues lingering after physical intimacy has ended. That discomfort encourages emotional withdrawal, reduced communication, shortened affection, or sudden focus on practical responsibilities. Their partner interprets this distance as rejection, while the avoidant experiences it as emotional recovery from vulnerability. Neither perspective captures the entire truth because attachment patterns influence perception in powerful ways every day. Recognizing this hidden process allows compassion without accepting unhealthy behaviors that repeatedly damage emotional security. Healthy love balances understanding with accountability because both partners deserve emotional safety and consistent effort. If this pattern feels painfully familiar, remember that avoidant attachment is an explanation rather than an excuse for emotional disconnection. Real healing begins when both partners acknowledge these patterns honestly, instead of hoping everything improves on its own. An avoidant partner willing to understand their attachment style can develop deeper intimacy through patience, consistency, and self-awareness. Likewise, the other partner must avoid sacrificing personal emotional needs simply to maintain temporary peace. Lasting love grows where vulnerability becomes accepted instead of feared, because emotional safety encourages genuine closeness. The bedroom ultimately exposes what everyday conversations sometimes conceal, because intimacy reveals hidden attachment patterns. When you understand what those reactions truly mean, confusion gradually transforms into clarity and healthier relationship decisions. If this video helped you see your relationship differently, share your thoughts below and keep learning the psychology behind lasting emotional connection.